La, la, la. Welcome once again to the Letterman podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. I am excited about shooting this intro here for part 2 of Dave Rygalski. I just loved part 1 so much. I love the stories of how folks, again, is there a more quintessential story of how Dave got into the entertainment business? And it started with Letterman, and Letterman is always going to be a part of what he does and everything, but it went in some crazy directions. We're going to find out in part 2 here. It's very, very cool. You know, he was the college student that Dave appealed to, so much so that he went to New York and the whole Stranger in a Strange Land, becoming the receptionist, the writer's assistant, the writer. And then where we left off in that episode, Dave said right around the time where the late shift was happening, and Jay Leno and David Letterman were fighting for the Tonight Show throne, and it got too hot, and writer Dave had to leave the employ of broadcaster Dave, and it was just we get there right away. I can't wait to have him on again, and we can talk about more of those years where he was working for late night. I mean, talking about Calvert, the Pan American Goodwill Tour, lots of meat on that bone alone, never mind all the other things that he was a part of. But really, I love part 2 here because it goes into other stuff, and that other stuff is it includes him working for Jay Leno on a couple of different occasions, including when the second late shift happened. He was there for that, and talking about Jimmy Kimmel's response and things like that. I love his perspective, and there are different perspectives in folks who worked for folks who are enthusiasts of David Letterman. We've got all sorts of different perspectives when it comes to that of Jay Leno. You know, I think about when Dan Kellison was on, and you know, would you like to see him as a guest on my as a guest on my next guest needs no introduction? No, definitely not. You know, staunch, like really, really opinionated about that. And there's a lot of people who feel the same way. And then you look at Dave Rygalski, and it's like, okay, would you like to see him on my next guest? He's the top of the list. It's just like he's the top of my list, by the way, just so you're all aware. I would love to see those two have a frank discussion. If they were both to be vulnerable and frank about things, not polished, not talking points, that's what I would love to see. And it's just neat seeing the different perspectives within the camps that were there. I love that. I'm endlessly fascinated by it. Dave is a great guy, and very excited to present part 2 of the Letterman podcast with Dave Rygalski. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so you become a writer. How long are you a writer for Late Night with David Letterman?
I was there about almost 2 years. When I left was when Leno got the Tonight Show.
Okay.
And there seemed to be a cloud around the office. It was sort of a darker period, and just that Dave's rejection rate went up, and it just, for my own mental well-being, I needed to take a break.
Yeah.
So I took off. I have regrets about it, but at the time, I just it was the right thing to do, just for my own mental health status.
Well, I got my podcasting chops. My wife is building, I mean, you and I haven't talked about this beforehand. My wife's building a men's mental wellness app. I host HeCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. And so, you know, we've done 100 and some odd episodes of HeCast, and I mean, you know, men's mental wellness, you know, has been something that a lot of times stigmatized, and a lot of the time people are, you know, they don't like talking about it, that kind of a thing. I salute you for being in, you know, a job that many would give their right arm for, and knowing that, whoa, I'm hitting my limit here. I'm hitting some governors. I need to I need to actually take some time for myself to rebuild myself, that kind of a thing. The atmosphere you're talking about, I have wanted to talk about this. I haven't talked about this with anybody on the show yet. And I think inadvertently, we've kind of stumbled onto the subject. You were actually working for the show when Leno was your lead-in, it sounds like, or at least that's right around the time where you were about to leave.
Yeah. I think Carson was still on the air and Jay was the permanent guest host.
Yeah.
But it had been announced that he was going to take over.
Right.
And it was palpable to me anyway.
I can imagine.
Just it was a high pressure job, and it got even higher. And, every waking moment was spent trying to think of stuff to get on the show. Weekends were not enjoyed. It was, and probably that's on me for not putting a governor on it, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
But it just you're under a 13-week contract, and I got to get picked up again every 13 weeks, and I had to stop. I just needed to take a break.
Yeah. Were you married by this point?
No. I was living with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And there was that was probably adding to the stress anyway.
Yep.
Who I actually met, she was an intern on the show. And I remember no one knew we were dating.
Right.
And one night we were out on the street on 3rd Avenue, goofing off, and we ran into Bridget Jackson. And she goes, "Dave Rygalski, Nancy Hopman, are you guys dating?" Oh, no. I didn't want people to know this. So, which is funny. Going back to writing, one of the bits I had on the show that was recurring was when Bridget Jackson left the show to get married. I came up with the idea of Steve O'Donnell named it Bridget Jackson's TV nest egg. But my idea was to have her on the show every day to get an AFTRA check. And so I realized, if she's just in a bit, it's this. If she tells a joke, it's a stand-up payment. And so I just came up, I think it was like nine appearances before she left. I think she got like $3,000. So we would keep a running tally of it each night that she was on. So that was fun.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's a total Letterman sensibility type thing. He's talked about, getting somebody that goes to a wedding, get somebody a set of tires and wrap up all 4 tires. Cause you got 4 presents. Like
that's exactly what he gave Larry Jacobson for his wedding.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
You should talk to Larry
Jacobson.
Yeah.
All right.
He's out here.
Cool. Well, I would appreciate the endorsement, and anybody who wants to come on the Letterman podcast who is part of this, we would love to have them on to talk about all of these amazing things. I want to, okay. So that point where it's funny too, because you could tell at that point when it's time for you to take your break, that you've never been working harder. You can totally tell, because at this point in the background, Dave knows he's not getting the Tonight Show. That's when Ovitz and all those guys got involved. The courting of Dave, and anyone who wants to read about this can read Bill Carter's book in the Late Shift, and he talks about that extensively. But the show had never been hotter. The show had you talk about palpable. The show itself felt, I don't quite want to use the word dangerous, but it was just, it had an energy to it. Dave carried it with him when he would go and do spots on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, just, the last few spots that he did coming up to even the very last week. And the things you guys would do on late night. I mean, it was sharp as a tack, and a little bit edgy. And it's funny how, your recollection of that time was Burnout, and I'm certain you're not the only one. One of the most pivotal pivotal times in broadcasting history, because Dave, you guys, Dave and company, none of you knew that you were actually going to create a franchise that would end up competing with the Tonight Show. You didn't know how it was going to go, and it just seemed, Dave in the background saying to people, well, I think my life in TV might be over because I don't want to follow Leno after my career, after my contract's over. Like, I don't want to. And that's a very, very, it's not talked about very often, how Jay Leno was actually David Letterman's lead-in for quite some time while that contract ran out before he went over to CBS.
Yeah.
And it's a chaotic time, and it was a chaotic time for the show. I appreciate you opening up about that.
Sure. It was the other thing that was going on was that the writers that I grew up with on the staff were also leaving. So Adam and Chris Elliott left to Get a Life. Kevin Curran had gone to Married with Children. Matt Wickline and Sandy Frank left. I think they went to do Living Color.
Yeah.
Who else was there? But it was like, that was my mentors and that was my clique. And they're all going, and all the new people that came in were Steve Young, Paul Sims. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Spike Firestone.
Yeah.
It just was a different dynamic in the room, and added to the upheaval. So
yeah. What a crazy time. Okay, so at that point, now where did you go after? So you leave Letterman. He goes over to CBS, and then your comments kind of go in different directions at that point. But at the same time, when I talk to Shecky, you got to talk to Riggs. You got to talk to, like, the affection that you guys all have for each other. We talk about this, the idea of this big, gigantic family that you all were. Yeah. You still have these bonds after all these years with these people. It's fascinating to me that is the case. Yeah,
Shecky and Ed Hall and Brian they took me under their wing, and those the guys that they wanted me to stay on with my internship. And they got the Lindy's offer, and I nothing but fond memories of them. And as you know, down the line, I wound up at Leno with Ed Hall as the voice guy, the announcer. So I eventually I'm writing bits with Ed Hall. I'm traveling. Doing remotes with Ed Hall as the talent. We went to give Sonny Bono, was it Sonny Bono? No, Bob Dole. We went to give Sonny Bono a birthday cake at the Capitol or whatever office building he was.
I was going to say he was a governor. No, not governor, but he was a
congressman.
Congressman.
Yeah. And Dole was a senator.
Yeah, and, there you go.
That was a silly little trip. Getting back to Shecky and them guys, they showed me basically. They made New York safe for me. I'm from Philly. It's a big city, but it's not New York.
No city is New York.
Yeah, that's very true. So.
I appreciate you talking about that, and I appreciate you also segueing. It's like you've done this before. I couldn't finish this without talking about the fact that you end up at the Tonight Show, and that's kind of where I was going with that. Was that
before the
weird
Tonight
for you?
Show? When I was at the Tonight Show for two different stints, from '94 to '98, and then I went back 2005 to the end of the show. But in between, I was on the Chevy Chase show.
I don't have that in my notes. You were on the Chevy fucking Chase show.
Yeah, from beginning to end, from day one to show 29.
I think, Dave, not to be devil's advocate, but I think most of the staff could probably claim that they were there from the very beginning to the bitter end.
A couple people couldn't. A couple people. Wow. But Joe Toplin was a head writer on the Chevy Chase show along.
Right.
And he was another guy that left during that time.
Yeah.
But after Chevy went off the air, I went and visited Letterman at the Ed Sullivan,
Yep.
and I brought him a Chevy Chase hat.
He
And
must have loved that.
well, I have the thank you note that he wrote.
Oh,
I don't know if you can read that. It's backwards.
just wanted to thank you for the. No, can you put it up there?
Yeah.
Just want to thank you for the birthday present.
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. That's the wrong one.
Okay.
Here, this one. There you go. I have my series of Dave thank you notes sitting here since you asked me that.
I always enjoy TV memorabilia. Thanks for the Chevy Chase hat. All the best for the new year, your friend Dave. Oh, that's a great gift to throw to. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
I know. When I
awesome.
handed it to him, I said, I wanted you to deliver his head to you, but all I got was his hat. Because Chevy had called Dave to ask him advice on how to do the show, and Dave made a joke about it, saying we're just glad it sticks to the tape. And but the Chevy thing was basically he didn't come in till 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So come to work. I guess that would be my advice.
That's a good start right there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that oh man, that was a crazy time. That was almost like new Coke. It was just one of those things where a lot of hoopla, a lot of stuff, and then the product itself literally fizzled out very, very quickly.
Yeah. That was not a good place. Not good. The writers were good, the staff was good.
Sure.
I would write opening remarks, and on the second show I wrote a self-deprecating line because the USA Today destroyed the show in a review.
Yeah.
And the joke I wrote was Chevy saying, I don't know what happened. I was looking for a USA Today today. I couldn't find one to save my life. And he said, I don't get it. What's that mean? I said, oh, well, they wrote a bad review of the show. And he goes, oh, well, fuck them. I don't want to give them any advertising. Ooh. And his lawyer, who was an executive producer on the show, came up behind me and said to me in a menacing tone, if you ever give Chevy a bad review before a show, you're fired. And okay, I don't know that anybody's going to write another bad review. It's unnecessary.
Saying that to a comedy writer, just the quip is just sitting there ready to come back out. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would submit out there, if there's one thread that even Johnny, him dancing when a joke wouldn't work, or something like that. Self-deprecation seems to be something that is essential when you have a talk show.
Oh yeah,
I agree. I mean, yeah, holy smokes. Okay, so thank you for throwing that part out, because that was something I wasn't prepared for. That is, you were a part of Riggs, you're part of TV, you're famous and infamy as well. That is an infamous show that you were a part of.
I think I can top it.
Let's do it.
When I left the Tonight Show in '98, I left to go be the head writer of the Magic Johnson show, the Magic Hour.
Oh man, you just add Pat Sajak to this and you got the trifecta, man. Like that is crazy.
Pat was on simultaneously with the late night, so I didn't get there.
Yeah.
But that was the worst environment. And they canned me before the show even got on the air, which was fine by me. I got paid out.
Yeah.
But just not good people working.
So that was a syndication deal, right?
I think it was Fox syndicated. It was on all their those. So
kind of looking at the Arsenio model from back before that, trying to use that as the basis of it.
It wasn't Magic wasn't the problem. It was the executive producer.
Yeah.
We had 6 pre-production weeks, and you're trying to compile comedy and get the tone. And unbeknownst to me, the Fox executives and there was 3 executive producers on the show. They somehow got a hold of all the comedy scripts for pending bits.
Yeah.
And sat around and read them in a conference room without me being there. and basically decided none of it was funny, and they canned me. And they brought, for the pilot, they had Nichols and Vickers from the Carson show
Yeah.
As writing supervisors, I guess. I don't know if they were head writers, but they didn't get hired on the show.
Yeah.
And then they brought them in as consultants a couple weeks in, and I didn't get along with them at all. They were putting jokes in bits, and we had to have a meeting with the executive producers, and I said to their face, I said, if these jokes came in as submission, I would have never hired you. And they just sat slack-jawed, and I'm pretty sure that was the day that they said, we're going to get rid of Dave and bring in somebody else and make these guys run the department. And that was fine.
Yeah,
fine
you're telling it like it is. That's something else that I don't know if it was O'Donnell who said it, but somebody said Merrill and Steve shielded you guys from that, from the from any of that stuff that exists. And that was one of the secret sauces that late night had, was that you had very little oversight that would reach, your level when it came to that, because it stifles, like what you just talked about there. Oh yeah, now I'm feeling creative. I'm feeling like I want to write something, funny. That it stifles creativity.
Sure.
The business of show really, really can fuck up the show.
That's a Paul Schaefer line.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure.
The business of show. Okay, there you go. And again, it's in my subconscious. I have thanked many of the folks from your generation and beyond. Thank you for creating the gray matter pathways that are here for all to enjoy. And that's what you guys did. Okay, so Leno and Letterman and all that stuff. Of course, there's been nothing, but that has been. It started in the early 90s, and it has not stopped. We still talk about it to this day, back to the Super Bowl commercial, like all the way up, like people still speculating, oh, would you ever have Jay on my next guest? That kind of a thing. When you went to work for Leno, was that weird? Did you have to do something in your brain to make that happen? Or was it something that you just, no, this is another gig. It's a different atmosphere, same job. It was no problem whatsoever.
Joe Toplin was the head writer and he basically got me the interview. And at that point, I needed a job, and if I could get that, I would take it. It was, yeah. This was my skill set, and this was an opportunity, and there was positive and negative. Positive being this job security.
Yep.
And the negative being, since your job's so secure, you're not making contacts out in the world for the next job.
Ah, yeah.
And there's a certain air in town of Leno's comedy versus Letterman's comedy, and yeah. There's it's a little snobby for pro Letterman. I like to think that I brought a Letterman sensibility into the Leno world.
Yep.
The Leno world gave me a chance to learn stuff I probably would have gotten to at Letterman if I stayed, but going on the road and shooting and editing bits became my strong suit. Not writing monologue jokes.
Yeah.
So I give them credit for getting me that, and I'm in the DGA because of them. So
yeah.
The Jay was fine with Dave. Obviously, that wasn't a two-way friendship at that point. You mentioned the Super Bowl ad. Kathy Mavrakakis punked me over that. She
I want to hear this story. This is great. Okay, yeah.
She emailed me the Friday before the Super Bowl just to say to me, hey, make sure you watch the Super Bowl this weekend.
Oh boy.
And I said, I was like, oh no, that's suspicious. I don't know. And I went to Jay and I said, I don't know what Letterman's got planned, but there's something going on. I don't know if they're going to be making fun of you on the Super Bowl, but just be forewarned. So I'm watching the Super Bowl. I see the ad. I realize you knew what was going to happen. My phone rings and it's Leno just laughing his ass off. because he burned me too. And I was like, Jay, I'm trying to protect you here. And it's super
Wow.
fun. I actually have a photograph of it that Kathy sent me, a big glossy 8x10 photo
Of the ad?
Of Jay and Oprah. I'll get it if you want.
Yeah, please do. Please get that. By the way, this is why we do the show. Like stories like this just don't come out short form. They just don't. I love that story. Shout out if you want to talk about the Super Bowl ad, George Schweitzer's episode, which came out I think 4 episodes ago. He was a CBS exec of marketing for the entire late show run. And having that, we're going to talk a lot more about that Super Bowl ad for certain, but having all of these different perspectives that come out, and this story here, the fact that, you're working for Jay at the time, you guys reference it to each other. And it's when it happens. I mean, when that ad came out, the president of the United States at that point, President Barack Obama, he was, he's making calls going, hey, was that real at this point? And then as soon as it happens, oh, look at that. Kathy sent that to you.
Yes.
Does that not? And I mean, there's Oprah in the middle there, but for you, that picture has a real special nostalgia to it because you worked for both those guys.
Well, wait to hear this. When I got hired in Chicago, I had a joke on that last show that was a mislead of a top 10. It was top 10 jokes we haven't made about Oprah yet. And the punchline was, oh, wait, there aren't any. And then they went to another top 10. So thanks, Oprah.
You're talking about the live Chicago show. That's where Dave made fun of Oprah, right?
Yeah, sure. That whole, I mean, not, there was a lot of Oprah jokes.
No. And I understand that, but she referenced, I think, that particular show at one point as the rift, the not rift, whatever.
I don't know if it was just that show,
yeah,
or just the cumulative effect of all that week,
yeah,
since it was Chicago. But and that a joke that I didn't get on because I thought of it too late in a tour of Chicago. They had already mapped out the remote schedule for shooting.
Yep.
I wanted Dave to take Bozo to the Dr. Scholl's Institute to see if they could fix his feet. To do something about them giant feet.
There it is.
That's the math of comedy.
Yeah.
Chicago, Bozo's from Chicago, Dr. Scholl's from Chicago.
Yep.
That's Joe
together
Toppin.
At last.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't weird you working for Leno, the idea of you bringing the Letterman sensibility, and you were there during the Jay Leno show then as well.
That was in 2009. Yeah, the 10 o'clock show.
Yeah. So and again, famously, infamously, brought over his staff from the Tonight Show over to that. So you actually worked on that show. I mean, I would not be good at this if I didn't ask you a little bit about that. I mean, that's we're gonna change primetime forever. The idea of I mean, it's people love to poo-poo something that didn't work, and they love to pile on all that kind of stuff. Everything I've heard about that, you guys thought, no, we're going to change prime time. That's what's going to happen. There's going to be a 5 block of shows, or was there within the staff already the idea that it might not work?
I'm certainly in that camp. Mm-hmm. And NBC is going back to that. There's talk of NBC losing the 10 o'clock hour in prime time again.
Yeah.
I was glad to be welcomed aboard. It was the hardest job I've ever had. I was responsible for 2 tape pieces every week out of 10, I guess, as well as I was like in charge of assembling the jokes for desk pieces.
Right.
So I was sort of the head writer's first lieutenant, and it's the pressure from like Rick Ludwin and NBC executives was
Yeah.
huge, and the there was just a lot of chefs in the kitchen for that 10 o'clock show.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to get back that hour of the Tonight Show. I just thought we were going to get canceled and that was going to be it. They would pay Jay out, but whatever algorithm they use to figure out it's better to pay off Conan and bring Jay back.
Yeah.
That's
that pay and play contract that he had. Yeah.
So I'm glad to have been employed, but boy, that show was a beast. Just because they added from the standard format, they added a comedy bit, so there was 3 comedy bits instead of 2.
Yeah.
I worked with a comedian. We went to Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Boston back to back nights, taping a bit for each city because the ratings were low in those cities, and we were trying to make nice with the affiliates and showcase the city.
Yeah.
And only let's see, the Boston one aired and the Baltimore one aired. The Philly one didn't air. We were taking off the 10 o'clock hour by then.
Wow.
So,
but fighting to the end though, like, I mean, that's behavior where, again, you talk about the business, getting involved in the show, fighting right to the bitter end with that. Wow. And then you were there for the rest of Leno's run. When he got the show back, you were there the rest of the time. That must have been a weird type of pressure too. I mean, it's the talk of the town. Dave famously, cynically refers to it as the golden age of television, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, okay, so you're on staff while this is happening. You're seeing all this happen real time. I assume you're watching Letterman every night. Are you watching Kimmel when like the 10 for 10 segment with Kimmel? Oh my God.
My God. Yeah,
holy cow. Brutal. You've seen some crazy shit, Dave.
That was completely unexpected. That was because Jay and Kimmel had butted heads before, and Kimmel admitted that it was sort of manufactured, that he took Stern's advice to have an enemy, and so they reconciled, and Jimmy was a guest again.
Yeah, and
then Jimmy just had an attitude or a take on what he thought went down, and between Conan and Jay, the thing I always say is, Conan had Ari Emanuel and Gavin Pallone on his team, and Jay had nobody. His lawyer was Ron Berg, who's my lawyer. So
Gavin Pallone, who, by the way, was a big part of Gilmore Girls as well.
Gavin Pallone, that's right.
It's all full circle, Dave.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. So that's a great point. But at the same time, a shitstorm, and you guys are all just there doing your jobs and seeing this happen in front of you. You weren't in the studio during that 10 for 10 moment, were you?
Sure. I in my office watching the live through the feed. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
And Jay just he fought through it, and
he took it on the chin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure Kimmel and him have reconciled at some point.
Yeah.
Again, Kimmel seemed to have really matured, I guess. He's more, I don't know what the word is, but just his whole thing through the Trump years has been more kind. It seems, and I don't know if that's because of his kid and what he went through with the illness and all that.
Yeah,
but he's definitely changed me. He's gotten softer in a good way. Not your comedy's soft, but
no,
more likable.
Yeah. Well, there's some emotion there as opposed to there's a vulnerability that's there, I think, that didn't exist before with Kimmel. And I guess during this time, because I mean, as this is happening, for those 2 or 3 weeks where it was the hot zone over there, Dave every single night just going up there in the first segment after the monologue, he might have a nice blue card with a comedy piece on it, and he just he just went off and started talking about it. You've got ties to the old show still. I mean, I assume you guys are all watching that every night, right?
What they did, the writer's assistant at Leno, or two of them, they would watch they DVR'd or VCR'd the Letterman and Arsenio or whatever else was on. So the point of it was to not replicate jokes. So they would send out the monologues from the other shows that morning from the night before.
Right.
And so if we didn't see it, we saw it in paper form.
Right.
What the comedy was. So yeah, we were very well aware of it.
Well, it was a crazy time, and you were at the epicenter of it, with a beginning that led to evolving to where you were, a very unique position in the history of broadcasting. Dave, I mean, you've been so generous with your time here. I would love to have you back if ever you start cataloging some stories and stuff that we can bring back to the show. But as we do that, first off, by the way, the Letterman podcast brought to you by the Hello Deli, Rupert G and the Hello Deli. Our only sponsor, Dave. Our only sponsor is the Hello Deli.
Good Love for you. Rupert. Do you have a sandwich named after you?
Not yet, but we're hoping. There's hope. We're going to New York here fairly soon, and Rupert and I are gonna do some things out there, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Where are you based right now?
What's that?
Where are you right now? I'm
in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, sir.
Oh, okay. So
you're a natural host. That's where I should be.
So I'm gonna show you one last thing.
Yeah, please do.
That I don't know how to fit this in.
Late Night with David Letterman, 101 best written TV series.
The Writers Guild of America had some.
Where do you keep that usually? Where's that hanging?
I actually, it was laying next to my cabinet of CDs. I taken it down off the wall to substitute another piece of artwork, an Underdog cartoon poster, the old Underdog cartoon.
That sounds about right too.
Yeah.
We didn't even scratch the surface as to stuff that you have gotten on the show and things that you're proud of and all of that stuff. I guess as we finish up here, there is a question actually. Okay, so let's talk about just real quick. Is there anything that was on late night? Again, use the analogy about how you guys were mining for gold every day. Most days you would find, sometimes there was a little bit of gold, sometimes there was a gigantic boulder of gold. And then of course you cast it aside. You don't even think about it unless it becomes a reoccurring bit. And then you go and mining for more gold every day. This show is helping to specialize in finding those gold nuggets and re-showing them and putting them on display a little bit. Was there anything that you're particularly proud of that might have been a one-off or something that you wrote that you got on there or has a special place in your heart that might not have been? We might need a Don Giller to go and do an archaeological find for it. Was there anything there that comes to mind as I'm saying these things?
Well, the very first joke that I got on and approved was a Halloween costume.
Okay, yeah.
And it was, and Susan Hum, I believe, made this. It was the rat in the chicken box of chicken. Did you ever see that?
Yep.
All right. Well, the backstory to it was my first bit, my first gag. I wanted to watch and hear the audience and get the endorphin rush if it got a laugh. And right before it was that joke's turn to come up in the bit.
Yep.
Eric Anthony had a seizure in the hallway next to me. And I ran up, it was split second thinking, oh no, my joke. Oh no, he's having a seizure. So I ran up. The nurse's office was on the 7th floor and we were on the 6th. And I got the nurse to come down because I didn't know what to do. And but I like to think that my humanity survived that day, that I took the right choice of going for
Yeah,
help
you
rather
made the
than
right choice, but it's a greater example for life right there. That is my big moment's coming, but then life happens. This is happening here, and then suddenly, there's an analogy there for something. That's oh, that's lovely.
and
I can't wait. Thank you so much for doing this, by the way. I've had so much fun talking with you about this stuff. I certainly hope it's been, well, at least bearable for you.
sure, if you can edit out any of my fumfering and brain deadness, that'd be great.
Well,
Keep it moving.
we do very little bit of little editing in the show because people love the conversation style. That's the thing, the beauty about long form. But I'll tell you this: you were great. You were fantastic. There's
Okay.
going to be a lot of people who are really excited about this. I finish most of the shows by asking. I'm not sure if you're up on Dave's Netflix show. My Next Guest needs no introduction or not. But he's doing the Tom Snyder thing now. He's doing the long form thing with folks. And you have all of you who worked there have a very unique perspective. And so we asked the question, if there was a couple of people, maybe three people at the most, people that you would love to see David Letterman sit across the table from, across the stage from, and then maybe, a long form conversation with some video pieces, who would those three people be for you?
Number one would be Leno, because
Yep.
that I think Jay would want to do that in a heartbeat. Uh, hmm, that's a thinker.
He's on my list too, by the way.
Who's out there that's anybody that Dave has sort of been combative with, uh, and the easy ones are Cher and Madonna.
Sure.
But I think Madonna, he'd have a good conversation with Madonna at
I
this
think
point.
Madonna's a really good. That hasn't been that actually answer hasn't been given here yet. And I mean, when you think about Jay-Z or Billie Eilish or some of these other gigantic stars who have music stars who have been on, Madonna's an icon. There's no question. Yeah,
And
that's a
then
good answer.
Elvis Costello.
Oh, you're not the first to say it, by the way. I love that answer so much. That would be a fantastic show. Um, uh, Riggs, Dave Rygalski, I can't thank you enough for taking time to be on the Letterman podcast today. I'm going to do a quick outro, and then you and I can say our goodbye privately, if that's okay.
Great. Sure.
Man, this conversation today is exactly why we do this. The Letterman podcast gaining momentum at the pace that we are, but it is moving forward. It's not just inch by inch either. We're actually moving bona fide feet here. This is fantastic. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for everybody who has given us the kind words, which most of them have been, and the critical ones, which are making us better. We've got some cool things happening. The studio's expanding and changing around, or we got one of the old Letterman bridges that's coming up, and this is all happening here. Very, very, very excited about this. If you wouldn't mind, and I'm going to keep saying it until we don't have to say it anymore, if you wouldn't mind, whatever platform you're consuming us on, if you wouldn't mind liking us, leaving a comment, sharing. Apparently, if you're watching us on the YouTubes, actually downloading it, there's a metric for that. Apparently, I don't know much about these things, but keep doing all those things till I don't have to ask you to do it anymore. That would be fantastic. I appreciate it. This has been another episode of the Letterman podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.